Hey YNR fans! Waving hand, welcome to YNR Trends, your go-to spot for the juiciest Young and the Restless updates, shocking spoilers, and all the drama you can't stop talking about. From surprise returns to scandalous twists, we break it all down for you, every day. So grab your coffee, hit that subscribe button, and let's dive right into Genoa City's hottest gossip. According to Friday, August 29th, spoilers on The Young and the Restless, Amanda Sinclair will return for new orders, and Billy Abbott will tell Jack Abbott about Kane Ashby's scheme. Nikki Newman will first attempt to cheer up Claire Newman by revealing her promotion on Friday's YNR episode. Other changes may occur at Chancellor as well, but nothing will really take Claire's relationship problems off her mind. Claire will still be troubled by Kyle Abbott's betrayal of her confidence. It's too late for Kyle to confess to kissing Audra Charles in France, but what's done is done. Kyle's only option at this point is to try to establish that Claire is the only woman he desires. For this reason, Kyle plans to purchase an engagement ring and propose to Claire shortly. Amanda Sinclair will return and receive some fresh orders in the interim, so Kane might assign her to deal with his blackmail problem. Kane might rely on Amanda to find a way out of this predicament if there is one. Of course, if Amanda is back in the scene, it's also feasible that Phyllis Summers will ask for her assistance. Amanda might be urged by Phyllis to persuade Kane to abandon all of his takeover schemes. Billy, for his part, doesn't think Kane is actually giving in. Billy fears that Kane still intends to stir trouble and is only using him as a diversion for the Newmans. Billy will, however, tell Jack Abbott that Kane allegedly decided he was done with his fantasies of dominating Genoa City. Jack would argue that they need to be ready for everything and be just as dubious as Billy about the news. According to teasers for The Young and the Restless, Billy and Jack will need to decide their next course of action, so we'll keep you informed about any cunning strategies they might employ. Although nobody had truly anticipated it, Amanda's homecoming to Genoa City was nothing short of spectacular. She had left with a certain quiet dignity the last time, indicating that she would not be returning anytime soon. She had left behind too many unsolved issues with Devon and everyone who had loved her twin, too many rumors that she looked like Hillary, and too many complexities. Nevertheless, she was entering the Grand Phoenix lobby through the revolving doors with the same level of poise, her hair styled flawlessly, her eyes unblinking, and a sleek black coat slung over her shoulders. It seemed as if no time had passed, but in reality, the city had changed, alliances had been formed and dissolved, and secrets were being protected with greater vigor than before. Amanda had no idea that her timing would put her squarely in the crosshairs of something far more significant than she had anticipated: Kane's covert plan, Billy's troubled morality, and Jack Abbott's desperate attempt to avert yet another storm that threatened his family's business empire. Billy was the first to notice her. Amanda's reflection was visible in the mirror behind the counter when he was at the Phoenix bar, feigning to enjoy a whiskey he didn't really want. His mind spinning with incredulity, he paused with his palm halfway to his lips. He didn't turn around for a long time because he thought he was seeing her. He was brought back to reality by the sound of her heels tapping on the polished floor as she moved, her stride purposeful, assured, and steady. She was authentic. She was present. He suddenly understood that if Amanda was back, some of the doors he believed he had sealed inside himself were going to swing wide open once more. He couldn't tell if that was a good or bad thing. Amanda hesitated just a little too long before letting a smile appear when she saw Billy. It was a reserved, courteous smile, the type she disarmed but never showed in court. "Billy," she answered calmly, her eyes showing the slightest hint of surprise but her voice as silky as ever. "I was surprised to see you here." Billy attempted to seem nonchalant, but his tone had a weight that Amanda couldn't ignore. "And yet," he responded, turning on his bar stool at last to completely face her, "here we both are." As if conceding in silence that they both had unresolved business, she lowered her gaze for a moment before locking eyes with him once more. Amanda was unaware that Billy had been carrying a burden for weeks and that he had been unable to tell anyone about it, not even Jack or Lily. During one of their heated conversations, Kane had confided in him, outlining a plan that left Billy sick to his stomach. Billy initially believed Kane was bluffing and attempting to control him, but as more information came to light, he came to understand that Kane was being deadly serious. And Billy felt the need increase now that Amanda was back in town. He couldn't hold on to this secret for much longer. Kane's scheme was about to blow up, and if Billy didn't alert Jack, the Abbott family could have to deal with unanticipated consequences. Naturally, Amanda could feel his discomfort. Billy wasn't exactly an exception to her ability to read people. She studied him, tilting her head. She said playfully, "You look like a man with something on his mind," but her remarks were more accurate than he would acknowledge. Billy gave a hollow chuckle. "You could say that," he said, not wanting to involve her just yet. Amanda had recently returned, and he didn't want the gloom Kane was creating to ruin her homecoming. Between them, however, there was an irresistible pull, an unresolved chapter that would undoubtedly resurface whether they wanted it or not. Billy was pacing the lobby later that night, caught between revelation and silence, as Amanda withdrew upstairs to her suite. His instincts begged him to carry the load by himself, attempt to control it, and persuade himself that he could defeat Kane without assistance. However, the knot in his chest grew every time he remembered Jack, his brother's confidence, and the duty he had to the family business. Jack had a right to know what was going to happen. They had to warn Jack. Billy was aware that time was running out. Long after the majority of the lights had gone out, Jack remained at Jabot headquarters. Using the quiet of the deserted buildings as a buffer against the turmoil of his personal life, he had developed the habit of working late. Jack felt like he was juggling too many delicate plates because of Kyle's difficulties, Ashley's erratic behavior, and Diane's tenuous place in his universe. Billy was going to give him another crisis, even though he didn't need one. Billy rushed into the building, his footsteps reverberating through the empty hallways until he arrived at Jack's office. He pushed the door open without knocking, startled his brother, who was looking up from a pile of contracts. "Billy," Jack uttered in a startled yet cautious tone. "Nearly midnight has arrived. What's happening?" After leaning against the door for a moment, Billy closed it behind him and strode across the room. His voice was raspy with urgency as he said, "I can't hold this in any longer. You must be aware of Kane's plans." Jack scowled, awake at once. "Kane? How is he connected to us?" Billy paused just long enough to spread it out. "He's after you, Jack. The business, the family name, not just you. He is working on a project that is more significant than I initially thought. And he will surprise you if we don't take action right away." With the familiar Abbott steel settling in, Jack's face hardened. He commanded, "Begin at the beginning. Tell me everything." Billy nodded while preparing to untangle the web of secrets he had been holding in his fingers. He was aware that once he spoke, he couldn't take it back. Kane's scheme, Amanda's unannounced return, and Billy's current decisions were going to start a series of events that none of them could stop. Even though the DiMera mansion was always filled with the smell of old money and ancient secrets, there was a tension in the air this afternoon that seemed to vibrate against the exquisite porcelain. It was more than just an arrival when Amanda, a character from a history that everyone had attempted to forget, reappeared. It was an excavation. Her existence was like a key turning in a lock that had long been considered to be closed. The mechanism she set off would cause a series of events that would dismantle well-planned strategies and reveal the shaky relationships that supported the power structures of the DiMera and Kiriaki's empires. Billy, a man whose very existence was a testament to the complex, interwoven histories of these families, was the catalyst for this unraveling, the improbable agent of truth in a world founded on deceit. The first domino fell when Billy revealed to Jack Devereaux the complex, Machiavellian scheme of Victor Kiriakis. One must first recognize the complex network of connections and grievances that Amanda had so suddenly re-entered in order to fully comprehend the enormous significance of Billy's confession. After a lifetime of battling his own issues and his complex relationship with the Kiriakis family, Jack Devereaux had managed to find a tenuous, elusive serenity. The specters of his past constantly threatened his connection with his son and his tenuous ceasefire with the outside world. The patriarch, Victor Kyriakis, was a brilliant strategist who saw individuals as pawns on a chessboard, their feelings and lives only variables in his ambitious plans for dominance and power. His schemes were never straightforward. They were like Russian manipulative nesting dolls, with each layer belying a more sinister, deeper goal. Billy was a special person who was frequently caught in the middle of these epic family conflicts. He was both an insider and an outsider, privy to Victor's confidence but never completely hardened by the cynicism that characterized the old man. He had a certain guilelessness that verged on fragility. He was more devoted to people and the tangled human ties that Victor so blatantly took advantage of than he was to power. The catalyst was Amanda's homecoming. Her past served as a reminder of past loves, betrayals, and secrets best kept hidden, haunting a number of people in this extended family. The fragile environment became unstable when she reappeared. It brought a storm of resentment and unresolved issues with it, and for Jack, it was a confrontation with a part of his life that he had attempted to close. Her existence was a wild card for Victor, an erratic component that may jeopardize his meticulously planned strategies. Victor came up with his most recent scheme in the midst of this increased unrest. The design details were typical Kyriakis. It probably involved manipulating finances, taking advantage of emotional vulnerabilities, and making a cold, calculating move to consolidate power by eliminating the threat Amanda posed, all while seeming to act in the family's best interests. The strategy depended on deception, secrecy, and the foreseeable, emotionally motivated responses of its targets. But Billy turned into a weakness in the scheme. He was the instrument of Victor's will, but he also had a conscience that Victor had either ignored or undervalued. Victor's clinical, impersonal approach started to appear cruel rather than intelligent as Billy saw the effects of Amanda's return, the anguish in Jack's eyes, the bewilderment, the reopening of old scars. Billy's dissonance increased. His empathy for Jack started to undermine his allegiance to Victor, which may have been based on fear or familial duty. Instead of seeing Jack as a pawn, he saw a person, a man who had endured enough pain, was making an effort to improve himself, and deserved the truth rather than more cunning manipulation. His decision was probably made in a quiet, unremarkable moment driven by a basic human instinct, the need to do what was right. The revelation of the plot to Jack was most likely a reluctant, tense confession rather than a dramatic declaration. Billy would have quietly explained Victor's plan in a quiet corner of the mansion or in an unnamed, neutral place, his voice full of terror and determination. The actual delivery was noteworthy. It was an act of moral necessity rather than treachery for selfish reasons. In order to uphold a larger confidence in the truth itself, he was compromising Victor's trust. The realization marked a turning point for Jack. The information was an epistemic problem rather than merely a tactical warning. It compelled him to reframe his whole world. It was abruptly revealed that statements he may have taken at face value and actions he may have misunderstood were part of a diabolical script Victor had written. It was revealed that the tenuous peace he may have been establishing and the trust he may have started to extend were a fabrication. He was both aliened by the extent of the deception and protected from its consequences by the knowledge, which was both a poison and an antidote. This intelligence transmission caused a dramatic change in Jack's agency right away. With the truth at his disposal, he was no longer a puppet. He played. Victor's scheme, which depended on Jack's lack of knowledge, was immediately thwarted. The manipulator's most effective tool, the element of surprise, was no longer present. Jack was now able to counterattack. He could defend Amanda as an independent person making wise decisions rather than as a pawn responding to fictitious events. He could protect himself and his family from the anticipated financial and emotional consequences. He became an author of his own fate instead of a victim of it because to this preemptive awareness. He and Victor's power relationship was forever changed. It was now a struggle between two conscious enemies rather than the traditional dynamic of the strong manipulator and the gullible target. Every move Jack made after that was now a strategic reaction, a move in a game whose rules he now knew. Billy's action also significantly changed his own place in the family hierarchy. He essentially redrawn the lines of allegiance by putting conscience ahead of loyalty. His deed demonstrated that his ultimate loyalty was to his own moral principles rather than to the whims of a father. Because of this, he posed a threat to Victor, not as a competitor, but as an uncontrollable variable. The predictability of human ambition, fear, and greed drove Victor's universe. Billy had acted with unselfish integrity, a principle that Victor's calculus was unable to explain. For Victor, this rendered Billy irreparably untrustworthy. He was an error in the programming, a leak in the system. But for Jack, Billy's admission created a special and strong link. It was an alliance founded on a common truth rather than blood or shared history. Now, Jack owed Billy something that went beyond simple allegiance. In their world of lies, Billy had given him clarity, which was the most valuable thing. This one exchange had far-reaching effects that went well beyond the actors themselves. The uncovered truth also gave Amanda, the resurrected specter, more strength. Men no longer plotted around her in dark chambers to determine her fate. She gained autonomy because she was now conscious of the forces working against her. Instead of having it predetermined for her, she could decide on her own course and define her own part in the play. The family's entire ecosystem was thrown out of balance. Previously believed to be strong alliances were now in doubt. One's secret strategies were now revealed. Everyone had to reevaluate and take sides based on the new terrain of truth and deceit that Billy had exposed, rather than the traditional allegiances of name and heritage. Billy's choice to tell Jack was a significant disruption in the vast, sorrowful fabric of these families, where generations-long cycles of manipulation and retaliation recur. It was an act that put healing above victory, truth above power, and compassion above strategy. It proved that a person's conscience might be a disruptive and purifying force, even in the most corrupted systems. The minute Victor's elaborate idea was voiced out loud, it practically vanished from the conversation. Its strength was in its confidentiality, not in its design, and once that confidentiality was broken, it was little more than a piece of paper, a play script that would never be produced. Therefore, a genuine study of Amanda Returns, Billy Spills Kane's plan to Jack would examine the act of disclosing the plan rather than the plan itself. It serves as a case study of how truth may change a situation if people view it as a resource to be gathered or used as a weapon. Amanda's homecoming offered the background and the impetus that required the disclosure. The content, the sinister secret that had to be revealed, came from Victor's plan. The real catalyst for change, however, was Billy's disclosure, his brave, delicate, and morally motivated choice to speak. It was the point at which one character reset the board for everyone by opting for openness over collusion. He demonstrated how one truthful statement may be the most potent and revolutionary act of all in a world full of lies. It would be like a stone thrown into the stagnant pond of the past, whose ripples would create the uncertain future. The paradigm had clearly changed, but the fallout would be nasty and the outcomes uncertain. Because one player had abruptly and permanently altered the rules, the game was no longer the same.